Funding your writing career. This is C. Hope Clark, founder of fundsforwriters.com. Fundsforwriters.com has been 101 best website for writers selection for 17 years. Really kind of proud of that. I'm also a freelance writer, have written for a lot of magazines. I'm an author of 2 mystery series, and I have self-published 2 books, The Shy Writer Reborn and The Best of Funds for Writers. I'm a member of Mensa, Mystery Writers of America, the Authors Guild, Sisters in Crime, and the International Thriller Writers. So with all of that, just would like to get to talking about funding your writing career. Everybody likes to talk about money. Everybody wants to know where to get it and how it can keep you doing what you love. I totally get that. But writing careers have a slow takeoff rate. If you've been in this business for very long, then you already know that. The waiting part of this game can be very painful if you let it be. We submit and we wait, knowing that 9 times out of 10 is probably going to be a rejection. It's not a fun part of the profession. And what's going to make it even harder is that you envision your career as more than art if you're going to be successful finding any funds. The art part is the fun part. I get that. Love my writing. It's when it comes to marketing and trying to earn that dollar that it starts getting a little bit painful. Just remember that if you are going to ask for pay for anything you do as a writer, you instantly become an entrepreneur. You become a marketer. And the point you'll have to take out of all this is that you need to be proactive in doing it. Being reactive means you'll be less successful. Readers, fans, the people out there in the real world that are watching you want you to be proactive. They want you to feel confident. And the only way you're going to make sales this day and time in whatever you do, whether it's copywriting, novels, nonfiction, is for you to be proactive. Nobody's going to come knocking on your door. Don't just wait for that acceptance or wait for that rejection. I need you to get out there and be proactive. And I'm going to dare you to diversify what you do. Writing income can be categorized as, don't you love that little snail? Slow. That's payments that you receive within 30 days. That can be smaller magazines, that can be online sites, blogs, even speaking and presentations. They can be slower within 90 to 180 days. Your larger mags, your freelance gigs, your contest, crowdfunding, and so on. And the slowest, traditional publishing. If you are a traditional publisher or know anybody who is, you know that most of the time you get paid every 6 months. Now, what I'm going to tell you here, and it's hard to swallow when you first get into this business, do not confuse your dream book with your desire to earn a living. You've got to wear 2 different hats here. You've got your dream project, and then you've got your desire to earn a living. Please don't let them muddy up together. Do not start with your dream book in learning how to write. If you're going to have a writing career, you need to get a grasp of how to write well before you throw out your heartfelt, soul-searching dream project. You need to learn how to tackle this business and the tools of the career before you throw that dream project out there. And do not think that writing your book is your key to a steady writing income. What I want you to do is see that all of life, all of it, is writing potential. There's not a thing that crosses your path every day that can't be written about, whether it's in a book, whether it's freelance, whether it's copywriting, whether you're blogging. All of it is potential. When I teach a class, I try to get people to think of what their day was about. Most people think it was totally boring. I usually can make people walk away with 3 to 6 topic ideas to write about before we get done with the example we use. Everything is a story. Everything is a gig. A writer can write about anything, absolutely anything. It's not just that thing you do, it is absolutely who you are. Once you cross that threshold, you will be amazed at how opportunities open up. So when you're getting started as your writing in your writing career, decide what is your driving motivation. Is it a steady income? Is it a part-time income? Or is it just pocket money? There's a difference in how you're going to work through this based on what your goals are. Are you looking for long-term income? Are you doing this for a 10 and 20-year career? And are you looking for a long-term reputation? You're looking to develop your name, to become famous, in other words. Are you trying to just fund an individual project, your favorite book, your memoir, one thing that you want to do? So think about that. Think about it. You've got to define what your goals are and where you're headed with this funding business. Then you need to know how much income do you need. Most people write and don't even think what it's going to take to publish, to market, to have this job full time. How much income do you need? Also, how much time can you invest in your writing? Is this part-time, full-time, or maybe hobby time, whenever you can get around to it? But know that when you decide to write and you decide you're going to market it or sell it to try and earn an income from it, expect 25+% of your time to be involved in the non-writing activities such as marketing, research, and administrative tasks. And remember, big note here, every single piece of writing you do impacts your reputation, your name, and your brand. So if you get tempted to write some little bitty thing you had not, you just wanted to get a quick turn on a dollar, you just write this $5, $10 article, look at where it's published, who's going to see it. Is it going to impact you positively, negatively? Is it going to help you move forward in defining yourself as a writer? Think about that. So when I tell you everything and anything is potential to write about for your writing career, I mean it all. I mean it all. You see all of these things listed here, and that's just scratching the surface. These are things we take for granted as people, not as writers, but as people. You know, our age doesn't matter, our gender doesn't matter, our family status doesn't matter. Oh my goodness, Chicken Soup makes a killing off of people who are writing about nothing but their everyday lives. Okay, everything in your life. My background happens to be, I have a degree in agronomy. That happens to be plant and soil science in agriculture. So you would first think that's got nothing to do with anything, right? Actually, I've written for Turf Management magazine, Landscape Management, several magazines like that, where they didn't care what my writing history was. They just cared I had a degree. I had a degree in agronomy, therefore they gave me the job. So you got to think about who you are, and that's how you're going to pitch yourself sometimes to these magazines. But it's also from this deep well of your life that you're going to pull ideas to write about. And these ideas are what are going to fund your writing career. I'll give you a perfect example. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago for a little short stint, was in a house that had no yard, and a landscaper came up to the door and said, "Here, I'm here to talk to you about landscaping your new house." I said, "Okay, fine, talk to me." And he starts talking to me like I am June Cleaver. I mean, like, we talked flower colors. We talked about all types of little, I don't want to say bimbo-headed things, but that's pretty much the way it came across, because he saw a woman who probably didn't know how to get her hands dirty. Well, like I said, my degree is in agriculture. So I let him get all through, and I said, "Now, my background is in agronomy. Let's start all over and do this right." It embarrassed him, but we got started on a better footing, and we got the job done. However, I walked inside and went, "Oh my goodness, that is such an article." Pitched it to Landscape Management, sold it in 30 minutes. That's what I'm talking about. When you are funding your writing career, you're taking your life, you're living your life and pulling these ideas so that you can turn them into something marketable to earn a living. To give you an idea, and we're going to get down to some nuts and bolts as to what makes for a successful writing career. In this past year, this is what my income was. 26% from novel royalties. Like I told you before, I write mysteries. I have 7 out right now. 24% was from speaking and attending conferences and teaching. 40% came from my newsletter, Funds for Writers. Funds for Writers reaches 35,000 writers every Friday. And as a result of subscriptions and advertising and affiliates, 40%. 40% of all of that becomes my income. And then 10% freelancing. Now, the year before that, the numbers were nothing like that. And the year before that, totally different. It depends on what opportunities show up, where I happen to pitch that happens to stick, and I take off. This past year, I happened to land a grant. I was hired under a grant to do some teaching. It raised my speaking income. It made it more 24%. So you never know from year to year, but what you got to do is keep a lot of irons in that fire so that you have more opportunities. To fund a full-time writing career, you need to diversify your options. Be willing to stretch your talent. Don't say you can't do that. You might be able to do it. Give it a shot. And I need you to invest in yourself. That means personal development. You never come to the end of learning in this job. This profession changes so fast. The marketing, the publishing, the magazines coming and going, all of that changes just from week to week to week. So you need to develop your skills as well as develop your marketing skills, develop your ability to self-promote. That has to be a continual learning process. There is no one right way to fund your writing career. We all love to see those who have been successful and try to do exactly what they've done. You know, a lot of that is who they are, the opportunities that happen to fall in their lap, which ones they happen to pursue, what's their strength in writing, even where they live. So there's no one way to fund your writing career. What you've got to do is know all of your options so that you can select, pick, and choose how you're going to do it. But whatever direction you pick, I want you to own it big time. Don't second guess yourself. Decide, I'm going in this direction, and then it's going to consume you, and you're going to take it and own it and make it yours. Everything that you publish, everything that is a success, you need to promote it. It needs to be the ladder you build upon, which means you need to know how to self-promote. Funding success is often parallel to your own self-promotion. You can't do one without the other. You write, you self-promote, you make an income. They all come together. If any one of those 3 legs is weak, then the others start getting weak. As a minimum, you need a website and 2 social media. As a minimum. Blogs and newsletters are still important. We see a lot of things out there that tell us blogs are dead or newsletters are dead. I have really chuckled because I've been doing newsletters for 18, 19 years now. I did them back when they were brand new. Then they kind of fizzled out when blogs came in and took over. I continued the newsletters. Now newsletters are back. It's almost like a whole new generation. And now they're hot and they're the way to reach your readers. So you've got, like I said, own what you do big time. I own newsletters and they've never failed me. Your basic funding categories for a writing career. I've learned over the years they fall into one of these categories. It does not mean you have to do them all, but it means you need to do more than one. There are just too many other opportunities out there. 1, freelancing. I believe every writer can freelance, whether it's working for a temporary employer or copywriting for a business, writing for magazines. You need to freelance. To give you an example, more people will read your feature article in a magazine in a weekend than will probably read your book in a year. That's a lot of people out there to get to know. Second, grants and crowdfunding. Used to be just grants. Of course, crowdfunding now is so much bigger. I prefer crowdfunding. I think it has so much more opportunity than grants that are very much boxed in terms of what you need to do to qualify and their requirements. Crowdfunding gives you a lot more parameters and a lot more control. Another option is subscriptions or Patreon, and I'll cover Patreon a little bit more in a few more slides. But subscriptions and Patreon, these are people that are paying to follow you. Contests are phenomenal, and I think every writer ought to pursue several contests a year, if for nothing else than a challenge. But contests can be not only money, but they can be a jump start for your career. We're going to cover those a little bit. There's always speaking, teaching, coaching, however you want to do it, whether it's online or in person. Please do it, because once you get published, once you become known as a writer, guess what? You're an expert. You need to pursue that out there into taking your skills and teaching others. I think every writer who has accomplished any type of success needs to reach back. That's what you can do in speaking, teaching, and coaching. And there is money in doing these events. There's also passive income / affiliates. We all know what that is, but we'll cover that in a little more detail. As a minimum, do Amazon affiliates. Then there's self-publishing, there's traditional publishing, and then there's a plain old job. There's nothing wrong with working full-time or part-time in a writing-related job. I'm amazed at how many people don't want to pursue a job. They are out there. They are definitely out there. Let's talk to freelancing first. Freelancing can be you working for a company or taking one-time gigs where somebody just wants some copy written for a website, somebody just wants a resume, somebody just wants a bio, an employee handbook. It could be you're writing short stories to populate a blog, whatever. It can be anything and everything. It's where an employer wants to hire a freelance writer to do a limited gig, a limited job. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of where some of these are. There's a lot more out there, but these I find a little more credible than most. You will hear good and bad about most of them. These are the ones that I have found that the good far outweighs the bad, especially if any of these have a paid structure to them. You can have a freebie side and then a paid side. Usually the paid side is well worth it because you get the more quality employers. My favorite is indeed LinkedIn. Freelancing tricks. Okay, let's say you want to go out there and find freelancing gigs. First of all, do something that is just pure common sense. Google Write for Us. You will be amazed at what comes up in that. Of course, you want to find those that pay, but Google Write for Us and you will see publications you never thought of. Also, those freelancers or magazines or businesses, anybody you consider writing for, or maybe they're your dream gig that you want to write for one day, or you want to become known more as a writer, follow the people who are successful or follow the markets you would like to write for on Twitter. Twitter, rather than all the other social media, tends to be a medium where everyone answers back. It doesn't matter how high they are on the food chain, they respond. So follow. And once they start recognizing you, then you kind of earn a little bit of an inroad to chat, draw up a conversation with them, and then you never know when that could turn into a gig. Also consider pitching prominent freelance writers for subcontracting work. Most writers don't think of that. A successful freelance writer has more than enough work to do. And what you may not know is that they subcontract out some of that work. Go to your favorite publications and see who's a regular contributor and ask, hey, do you want to sub any of your work out? Pitch new businesses and companies that are coming up locally in your neighborhood, in your town, in your county, in your state. StartUpHire.com is a good place to start. But find new businesses. They are not even sure what they want yet. But if you knock on their door and say, hey, I'm a writer, copywriter, is there any type of work that you need? These are the services I can offer. You know, knock on the door first. Be that first face they see. Now, I want you to create an attractive online resume on a website with testimonials. You know, stretch the imagination on the testimonials. Anyone you have written for, try to get a good testimonial that will look good for anyone else considering hiring you. Don't have it just bare bones. Never say you're new. And never say you're just trying to get started. Never say, this is my first year of writing. Don't say you're retired. Don't say you're young. Don't say you're old. Don't say anything in between. It's only about the writing and your skills. So you want to have your resume as to what you've done. You want to list what you have the qualifications to do, as well as testimonials of people who will speak on your behalf. Now, if you want to really stretch yourself, you will be more marketable if you know just a little bit of graphic design or a little bit of SEO, search engine optimization. You understand the language of what makes a good article online. Learn a little bit of WordPress formatting or web development. It's not as hard as you think. I know WordPress. I know a hint of graphic design. I definitely know search engine optimization. All that came from nothing other than digging up the info and self-teaching. You can do that. You can do that. Learn to master social media a little bit. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because if you go to a company or a magazine or a website or a blog and you're pitching yourself and your services, if you also know any of these other little tricks, guess what? You are much more marketable. Determine your niche, then create your brand. Now, I call that more of a soft niche because you don't want to show that you're only limited in this tight little market. You want to say these are the things that you know and that you write well at. However, you can write anything. But you want to have some type of little niche. Some people become, say, business writers. That does not mean they can't write about sports. So it's that type of mentality. They may write mostly for parent magazines. That does not mean they can't write for children's magazines. So you want a soft niche so that people remember who you are. You want to create a little bit of a brand, and you'll spread that. It'll blossom. It'll grow out. But your hardcore beginning will be in one particular direction to get you off the ground. You're trying to show that you are an expert. And I would like to see you subscribe to press release sites so that you can get story ideas. That's right. Some of the best story ideas on current events, groundbreaking ideas come on press release. Duh. Think about it. What do people do when they have a new release or they have a new product or a new discovery or a business opens? You know, you name it, they throw out a press release. Well, if you've got press releases coming to you the day they're released, these are fantastic ideas to pitch to blogs and markets. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine who does nothing but this. She makes a living from this. And she found where there was a new type of I say gadget for loss of words, but a doctor developed a new prosthetic for children. And his first patient was a 13-year-old girl. My friend developed that into 3 different stories and sold all 3 of them. So, and the press release is right there with all your contact information for interviews. It's just a ripe place to go get story ideas. And I also want you to set up Google alerts for topics in your niche. That way you also get not only these press releases, but things that pop up in blogs and on websites across the web. It's kind of exciting, isn't it? All these new ideas. Now we come down to asking what you're worth. Okay, know your price. Know your ideal price. What would you like to collect? And then know your bottom line. You don't have to pitch one particular item. Know your range. And over time, you'll learn to be able to read someone as to where they fall in that spectrum. When haggling with someone, instead of being the first one to throw a dollar figure out there, ask what their budget is. What did you budget in this for your copywriting or for your freelance articles? And if they're not sure, they don't know, you'd be amazed at how many people don't have a budget. Then start with your high price and work it from there. Also, be willing to walk away. You do not want to sell your soul for all this because you're trying to build your brand and your reputation. So if someone comes to you and says, I can do 2 cents a word, and that's not in your range of bottom line to ideal price, say, I'm sorry, but I'm unable to do that, and walk away. They may call you back, they may not, but you will be able to look at yourself and smile in the morning. Now let's go to something that most people want to know about when it comes to funding: grants. Everybody wants the free money. Grants are provided for the most part in the United States by nonprofits and government entities. They're normally very small. There are not 5-figure grants out there for writers to write their books. The National Endowment for the Arts is the exception. That's a very large grant. It's smaller than it used to be, but it's around $25,000. Most of those people apply 5, 6, 7 times with publishing history under their belt before they ever get selected. So let's not quite start at the top if you're just trying to get your career off the ground. It also tends to lean toward literary work rather than anything commercial. So grants, for the most part, are normally very small. They're not going to allow you to stay home and write. They are also very performance-oriented, not necessarily for the need. So don't lead with you're disabled or you're unemployed or you lost your job or you're between jobs. No, no, no. When you pitch to a grant, it's performance-oriented. You want to show how good a writer you are. Grants are a tool, not support. If you put that in the right perspective, then you'll understand better. You won't be quite so disappointed. There are some emergency funds available. I keep those listed all the time on fundsforwriters.com under the grants page. So feel free to take a look at those. They are not funded very high, but they do have available funds for people who have been injured, have had a disease, have been through a natural disaster of some type. Those emergency funds are that's what you're needing those emergency funds for. Okay, fundsforwriters.com, already mentioned that. You can go to the website and find some of those. Go to foundationcenter.org. That is the United States Center of Grant Resources. They tend to lean more towards organizations rather than individuals. However, they have all individual grants as well. It's a lot of voluminous information, but they are the ultimate source. Go to the National Association of State Arts Agencies, NASAA-arts.org. They keep track of all the state art commissions and councils because each state has its own set of grants. The Alliance of Artist Communities, that's where you find your retreats and your fellowships to get away and write that project. We've mentioned the National Endowment for the Arts. There's also a National Endowment for Humanities. So take a look at that. You might be able to coordinate what you do as a writer in with some humanitarian project. Search local. A lot of people don't realize you have a town or a county arts council right there in your town. And I am constantly amazed at how good these things are. They want to fund homegrown talent. Now, the grants may not be high. It might be a $700 grant. But look how far that would take you if you're trying to self-publish a book right now. Also check your professional writers organizations, mystery writers, the children's writers, SCBWI, sci-fi and fantasy. Check all of those organizations because all of them have some little grant component. Crowdfunding, love crowdfunding. Kickstarter is what most people know. It's the largest. It tends to have an all or none campaign system. What that means is you go in and you create a campaign, you throw it up on their site in hopes that people will pledge to support you. You go on Kickstarter, it all makes sense as soon as you look at a couple of the campaigns. The deal with Kickstarter is, though, if you are trying to collect, say, $5,000 to help you self-publish your book, if you only get $4,000 worth of pledges, you wind up with nothing. They want you to have enough pledges to meet your budget. So it's an all or nothing type of campaign. It's also the most popular and the biggest. Indiegogo is the second largest, and it has two types of campaigns. You can do it like Kickstarter, where it's all or nothing, or you can opt for a different campaign where whatever is pledged, you do get. The difference is usually the amount of administrative fee that comes out of the funds. GoFundMe tends to lean toward personal campaigns. I tend to suggest people not use that if they're trying to further their writing career or to publish a book. GoFundMe tends to sound a little on the, like it sounds, me. You want your campaign to be more toward the writing, not to you as a needy individual. Hatch Fund is often overlooked. It caters to artists in all arenas, and it is mainly for artists. And they help connect you with people that can help fund the arts or who like to fund the arts. Then there's Patreon. It caters to monthly subscriptions. We're going to cover that in a little more detail. But Patreon is where you have people that follow you every single month for a fee, and you deliver a magazine, a short story, a video. You deliver unique material that only goes to your subscribers. What's key in all of this is that you have a well-designed campaign that makes you look professional. It needs to have a very good visual component, because even though we're talking literary works, people are attracted to the cover. Steady promotion and outreach to generate interest. You can't just pop it up there and wait to see what happens. You need to promote it just like you would a book or anything else. Patreon. Love Patreon. It's smart. Patreon, I gave you some examples here. These authors here actually have very successful Patreon campaigns going on. You can see the first one makes $5,626 a month. She puts up a sci-fi fantasy short every month, and these people are paying to be the sole people that read this. They're being catered to by this author. As a result of them paying their $5, $10, whatever it happens to be, to get this free monthly, this unique monthly material, she's earning $5,600 a month. The next one is just pure fiction. She has 1,440 patrons, and she's getting $8,000 a month. You need to go to these sites that I've listed here, and I'm taking my time a little bit in case you want to write them down. Look at the way these people describe their campaign. Especially the first one goes in tremendous depth as to why she chose Patreon and what every dollar is going to, and what her short-term and long-term goals are, and what you will get as a patron by subscribing to her. It's so polished, so professional, and she's basically saying, I need funds through Patreon so that I can write full-time. You boil it down, that's all she's saying, and people are clamoring to get that extra unique material. Adam Westbrook, the third one down, turned his stories into video stories. And while he has a lot fewer patrons, he's still getting a nice little bit of pocket change at $973 a month. And then the last one is a little magazine. That person came up with a little literary magazine. 63 patrons, $324 a month, and they're just getting started. So I hope that gives you an idea. I've got listed up their subscriptions. If you don't do Patreon, you can have a paid version of whatever you do if you have like a newsletter. I happen to have a free newsletter, Funds for Writers, and a paid one, Total Funds for Writers, that folks pay $18.75 a year. it's a nice chunk of income for me, but it allows me to reach out. I have all this material at my fingertips because a lot of editors, contest publishers, agents come to me and ask me to post these items in my newsletters. I have way more than I could possibly do in the free newsletter. So I created this bi-weekly paid subscription, and people love it. Now let's go to blogging. Who hasn't wanted to get paid to blog? Blogging is fun. It's natural. Hate to say it, but we tend to not edit it as well. It also tends to have our ideas that just come as whims out of the blue, and we kind of test drive them in a blog. If you take blogging seriously, you can make some money with it. Treat it the same as pitching for a magazine. Now here I'm talking guest blogging. What I'd like to see you do if you want to pursue the blogging aspect is start yourself your own blog. Make sure it matches your niche, your brand, whatever direction you want to take it to. Just don't make it a general, hey, I'm a writer and these are the things this is what I'm thinking of today. Give it a little bit of a direction, give it a schedule, and keep that schedule because you need to be consistent. Then turn around and pitch to other blogs. Okay? I want you to pitch it just like you would to a magazine, almost like you would an agent or a publisher. You're pitching an idea to that other blog. You want to use their big readership in order to draw people back to your own blog. Not to mention get paid for the guest blog. You need to pitch blogs just like you would to a magazine. In doing so, to be taken seriously, please follow the blog and read it and understand its voice. Make sure they pay. Open with a hook like you would to any query. Compliment why you like the blog. That sounds so small, but it matters. When you are the blogger and you go day in and day out trying to come up with unique material, compliments go a long way. And if you compliment and explain why you like that blog and it hits a nice little nerve for that person, you might have a gig. Explain thoroughly why your piece will work for their blog. Give your bio with links. Don't forget, you got a website and one or two social media sites. And then give them your thanks. And keep in mind, these aren't just small blogs. You want to pitch the bigger blogs too. And these days, most print magazines have a separate blog component. You want to pitch that. This is the only time I will even hint of writing for free. The reason being is that, let's just use Family Circle magazine. If you pitch to be on Family Circle's blog, look at the readership you're tapping. Not to mention, you can put on your resume you published with Family Circle. So when you're looking at print magazines, stop and think, hey, I bet they have a blog. Guess what? It's going to be a little easier to get in on that blog. They have two separate editors, so don't pitch the same editor for print and for blog. But you pitch it just as professionally as you would the print. Contest. I love contests. First, obtain them from a reliable source. Don't just Google contests and submit to everything you see. Use them as a barometer for your writing. Before my first novel, when I was scared to death to pitch agents, I submitted my opening paragraphs, my opening chapters, my first 50 pages, whatever the guidelines were for the contest. I pitched my novel to contest so that I knew whether or not it was good enough to be pitching to agents. Once I won a contest and placed in 3, I decided, yes, I could go on out there and start pitching to agents. It's a lot easier to be rejected in a contest than it is directly by an agent or a publisher. Hey, they offer cash prizes. Nothing wrong with that. A good many of them offer publishing opportunity. If you've been rejected by publishers, magazines, depends on what the contest is. If you've been rejected, why not try to enter a contest? Because that might open a door from another direction. Winning a contest means you are going to be listed somewhere as a winner. You have been vetted. You have been deemed worthy by a judge somewhere. That can help springboard your name and offer some credibility to you. There is nothing wrong with entry fees. I actually prefer contests with entry fees because I know they're going to follow through with paying. Contests are not cheap to run. They have to pay judges, they have to pay for advertising. A lot of times they're paying for the publication of the winners. Nothing wrong with entry fees. Just make sure they are not excessive. Places where you can find contests: Funds for Writers, of course, Poets and Writers, New Pages, Aerogram Studio, Writer's Digest, Comps and Calls is a fairly new one, and Winning Writers. There are many, many more. These I thoroughly trust. Now let's change gears. Speaking. Most of you will go, no, I'm not going to speak. Trust me, as someone who wrote The Shy Writer Reborn and couldn't stand to get in front of a group, you can do this. You can do this. Speaking can start as small as meeting in a coffee shop and speaking to 4 or 5 people. Warm up like that. If you do it enough times, then suddenly you realize you can speak to 20 with no problem. You do that a few times and the number rises. You will get used to it, especially when you're talking about the things you love and know. Try starting with book clubs, especially if you've got a self-published or traditional book out. Meetup.com has a lot of book clubs. There is not one site to find all your book clubs because they kind of like to keep to themselves. They don't want to be overrun. Talk to book clubs, libraries, meetup.com, or simply Google out there and see if you can find book clubs to speak to. They are fun. They are my absolute favorite speaking engagement. Go to bookstores. When you have a book come out, maybe they want to hear you speak about it. Do a reading. Answer people's questions. It's not that difficult. Libraries. Libraries always are looking for authors. They want to present more novel things to their patrons. And so you never know. Some libraries say no. Some are so eager they would sign you up for the next Saturday night. So go to your local libraries. Librarians love to talk up local authors. Civic organizations. Any type of charitable organization is looking for speakers at their next meeting or their next banquet. And if your book or what you write about tends to match what they do, all the better. But you can probably take what you have learned as a writer and twist it into a motivational message for just about any civic organization. Schools. I've spoken to many schools, anywhere from 3rd grade to college. And it doesn't mean you have to write for 3rd graders or you have to write for college students. It just means you're a writer that knows how to write. Conferences, conventions. Conferences can be writing conferences, but they can be other conferences too, as well as conventions. Go to any convention hall in your city. Every city has a place where conventions and conferences go. Look and see what's coming up. You might pitch a topic to anybody's convention and make it work. Of course, that means sales as well, because you'll be bringing your books. Senior living facilities. I don't know if you've paid attention. These things are exploding. They are exploding. A good many of them have libraries. They are becoming more upscale. They are complete 1,000 and 2,000 square foot apartments with theaters, with bars, with restaurants, with libraries, and they want people to come in and do presentations. Coffee houses, I've done my share of those. They are actually kind of fun and intimate and not nearly as ominous. Or go online. Let's just say you can't get in a car and go someplace. You might be physically unable. You may have a day job that can't take you away, or you've got a 6-month-old. So consider Skype. There's GoToMeeting.com. You could set up an event and present it across GoToMeeting.com. Skype is wonderful. I've done Skype in my car on the way to Oklahoma on the interstate. It's wonderful. You can do it anywhere. I want you to keep in mind a signing is separate and lesser than the speaking. When you get invited to speak, make it all about the speaking. You do not want to lead anyone into believing that, oh, they're just hawking books. No, you need to come with a message. So it is all about the speaking. The signing is just after the fact. Also, when you're trying to pitch how much you should be paid for speaking, weigh your speaking fee against the expected book sales. Okay, if you have an event, I spoke to a civic organization where there were 120 women in the room. I knew that this was a well-heeled organization, and I asked for a pretty good speaking fee and asked that I keep all sales from my books, no sharing of any of the proceeds. They went along with it, walked away with an 85 book sale from that, as well as a pretty substantive speaking fee. So you might go to another organization that can't afford to pay you much of a speaking fee. They might say, oh, we can come up with $50. Then that's where you're going to say, how many people will be there? I'd like to bring my books. You're going to balance how much you can make from book sales versus what the speaking fee is and how much whoever it is can afford to pay you. So learn to juggle. Passive income. Wouldn't we love for most of our income to be passive? Amazon affiliate book sales. Hopefully most of you know what that is and are already using it a little bit. That means if you list a book on your blog or your website, that you have an Amazon associate affiliate code hooked to it. So whoever clicks on it goes back to Amazon, can make a sale. You get a little percentage of that book sale. Do that for anything you list for sale on Amazon. On your site. There are other affiliate sales you can do as well. I have done straight affiliate sales with self-published books, not through Amazon, but directly with the author. I have listed courses from teachers where I've received an affiliate fee. Cover designers, formatters. If anyone charges in this industry, or there's any product out there for sale that you can justify having on your site, there can be an affiliate fee attached to it. So keep that in mind. Make sure whatever affiliate you put on your site or in your newsletter or on your blog complements who and what you are. Funds for Writers only list books, courses, retreats that aid writers. I will not post an affiliate fee for a romance or sci-fi novel because that's not what my readers are. So just keep that in mind. You want to make it complement who you are, not clash with who you are. Put those affiliates on your website, your blog, your newsletter, even on social media. And don't overlook the fact, especially if you have your own books, sell them directly on your site. Shopify and eJunkie are good places for you to set up that system where someone will purchase it and then automatically have it to download. And if you want to set up a newsletter, these are just 4 that I suggest. I happen to use Aweber, but MailChimp is very good. It's free up to 2,000 followers. MailMunch is supposed to be very easy to work. And Beacon I'm not familiar with. I just know it comes with a really good reputation. Now let's go into some details. How do some of these people become successful as writers? What are they doing to be successful? Carmen Amado is a mystery author. She went full bore on becoming a mystery author and just perpetuating herself as a mystery author. She focused on her fiction. She's written 8 books since 2012, all self-published. She hit self-promotion hard instead of diversifying her income. I would have suggested she diversify a little bit, but she's been successful, so hey, how can I argue with it? I want to give you all aspects of these successful authors and what they've done. But what she did that's creative is she populated her own blog with interviews and debates from well-known and well-connected people. What she did was by their name. She went out and asked to interview these people, put their interviews up, and of course they turned around and linked it to everything they do. She started receiving followers from all of those interviews. So by all means, tap somebody else's followers if you can do it. She also, in another year, donated $1 per book sale to water.org. Well, water.org happened to have a big crowdfunding campaign that year, so she piggybacked on it. And she emphasized their crowdfunding campaign. And as a result, people who learned about water.org also learned about her books. She also, since her books are set, guess what, in Mexico, she created an anthology on the best of Mexico. So this woman is diversifying a little bit, and she's using every angle of anything she can with her book in different ways to earn a living, and doing quite well at it. Rona Simmons is the opposite. She's done everything, but she thoroughly enjoys it. She's a novelist and a freelancer. Look at all these things she's done. She's ghost written biographies, written for literary journals, written for magazines. She's managed 3 blogs and written for many guest blogs. She enters contests and she judges contests. I happen to do the same thing. She has applied and achieved small grants so that she can attend festivals and conferences. Funds for Writers actually had a grant offer last year to send someone to Killer Nashville in Nashville, Tennessee, a mystery conference. And she won that. That's how I learned about her. She also, just like she offered to judge contests, she offered to judge and review grant applications. Guess what? Anyone can ask to do that. I've served on panels as well. What that does is 2 things. One, it makes them know who you are at the council or whoever you're judging for. And 2, it teaches you what makes for a really good, successful grant application. You get to see the good and bad and everything in between. So it's usually a volunteer effort, but you judge one set of grant applications and you have a newfound feel for how you can apply for grants. She's co-directed literary festivals. She's created 2 writing groups, taught workshops, critiqued, self-published books. She has a 3-book contract with a small traditional press right now, just released one of them. So, and then she crowdfunded to publish one of those books. It's amazing. It's amazing what this woman has done in so many different directions, and she's unstoppable. But that means if something doesn't work well, she's got other things that are. Look at the next one, Anjani Sukna, who goes by the name of A.D. Starling. A.D. Starling is her pen name. It's got a little ring to it. I love it. She started writing in 2012. She's got 5 novels, 8 shorts, a novella, 4 box sets, and gone with audiobooks. She's totally self-published. And get this, she's working part-time in the medical field and is a part-time writer. She's just phenomenal. She happens to be very tech-oriented. So you give her anything that's graphic-related. Remember I mentioned before, if you understand a little bit about graphics, SEO, web design, any of that, but she's used that to help market herself between her bookmarks and her websites and her covers. She also conducts online workshops because, guess what? She has a job. She can't readily travel. So she does a lot of things online. And she's big into bargain ebook promos. She uses every type of publishing platform that's out there. She doesn't just do Amazon. If there's a place out there that will sell a book, she's on it. And she will convert her books to any product. It's not just ebooks. She goes to print. She'll go to hardcover. She goes to audiobooks. She does whatever is out there because she's forever testing what works and what doesn't. She has a well-defined team. She knows who her editor is, her cover designer, her formatter, her street team. She has her go-to people so that she loses no time when she's setting herself up for a new release. Joanna Penn, she's awesome, just huge. This woman is making big bucks right now. She's not only an author, but she's also an entrepreneur. So she's half fiction and she's half entrepreneur in the writing field. She is a guru when it comes to self-publishing. She has sold 500,000 books, every platform imaginable, every format imaginable. She's done pretty much like A.D. Starling before, where she's covering anything possible. What I love is she also uses Patreon. She has unique material going out to those patrons under Patreon to build just a little steady monthly income to add to her other pot from all of her different income streams. The woman must have a dozen income streams. She is just amazing. Victorine Liesk, not a household name. However, she strictly limits herself to Amazon. She has sold $200,000 in Amazon books in the last 6 years. She, in the past year, did closer to about $80,000. Now you see, out of all of those sales, only a little bit in Nook sales, speaking fees, and outside print sales. She learned that Amazon was what she loved. She found a niche that she likes to write in, believe it or not, fake marriage romances. They're clean, short, like 50,000 word romance stories, and she adores them. The covers are to die for. She uses Kindle Select, and every marketing tool they offer, she becomes a specialist in. She's big in using BookBub, all the ebook advertisers, distributors. And her biggest coup, I asked her what was her biggest success. She says a BookBub ad before Christmas last year led to her making $25,000 just in December and January. She has a mailing list, meaning a newsletter. She puts the link in the back of all her books, and she has a street team just like Starling does. She has her go-to people. So when she needs something done, she goes to them to ask. And then you got somebody that's kind of a jack of all trades. I started writing a newsletter when I could not sell my mysteries. Then once I got the newsletter established and began to build a little bit of a name, I went back to my novel writing, and once I got one written, entered contests to feel when it was best to start pitching agents. I freelanced at the same time to fund the time I spent writing novels. I spoke when asked. I started off in a coffee shop and worked up to where I've spoken to groups of 500. I have two websites, have a newsletter that goes to 35,000 people. Now, as a result of that newsletter and the websites, I have a passive income. I've developed a brand, and that brand has helped me open a lot of doors for both speaking and publishing. I published 7 traditional novels and 2 self-published nonfiction books. And I already mentioned that last year, I spent an entire year in a speaking contract with a South Carolina grant through the state library system. I use whatever it takes. If I see an article, or something happens to me today, I'll turn around and turn it into an article and pitch it. If I don't have anything to pitch, I sit down and work on my novels. It's a jack of all trades type of thing, but I have goals, and I make sure that I measure them and account for them at least monthly to make sure, first of all, whatever I'm doing is making an income and that I'm headed in the right direction. Going hybrid. Go traditional and indie with your books. I am traditional with my fiction, and I am indie / self-publishing with my nonfiction funds for writers type of material. By doing so, it allows for long-term and short-term income. You are diversifying. As a lot of businesses will tell you, you've got to have different sources of income in case one of them dries up. Your self-publishing can give you more short-term income where your traditional is more long-term. You also reach a lot of different markets. You can piggyback your traditional on your indie advertising and vice versa. You bank on both sorts of reputations. There are pros to cons in both, and by doing both, you are mitigating the risk. So I hope I've made you enthusiastic about diversifying yourself and trying to find some ways to fund your writing career, whether you would rather be right behind the computer and sticking to Patreon or crowdfunding, or you'd rather be out there speaking. Would you like to get a grant to speak at libraries like I did, or would you rather just do little small events in your local library down the street? I've given you a lot of ideas. Don't discount any of them before you give them just some little sense of I wonder if I could do this. Because you open the door just a smidge, you might be amazed at the talent you have and the strength you develop in being a very diversified writer that earns a pretty substantial income. Thanks so very much. If you'd like to get in touch with me in any way, there are all my contacts, and I would love to hear from you.